So now we have the pleasure of having our guest speaker, Annelous Lammerts, who is a kiteboarding pro. And I will turn over to Nicole to give her a proper introduction. Nicole?
Yeah, sure. So let me give her an introduction. So Annelous started kiteboarding in 2009 and fell in love with the sport ever since. So when she was in school, she was cycling back and forth 70 kilometers to the beach to go for a kiting session, sometimes to only find out that there was no wind and go back again without any kiting. Ever since, she spent most of her time on the water, and she has progressed so quickly that she decided to join some of the local competitions in the Netherlands. And in 2012, actually, she became the European champion, and she has competed in the World Tour in the years then after. And in 2019, she achieved her biggest goal, and she won the Triple S Invitational, as well as winning her second KPL World Tour title. Last year, she became stuck at home like most of us during the pandemic, and she got the opportunity to join the Dutch KiteFoil team. And they are training for the Olympics in 2024, which is, of course, super exciting. She's completely new into this discipline, so that will definitely be a good challenge for the years to come. And we're really looking forward to hearing more about this, obviously. So we're very honored to have you here, Annelous. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole. And Annelous, I'm going to turn it over to you. And if you would just wait 30 seconds before you begin, I just want to take down the slide and have you on video and check for our registrations and participants who are just logging in. If you could wait one moment before you begin, we'll make sure we have everybody there. So this is your time to just take a breath and relax. And I'm going to take the slides down. Give me one sec. Perfect. And welcome for those of you who have just joined. Nicole has just introduced our guest speaker, and we are getting ready to listen to her story in one moment. And we still have people logging in. And if you need to grab a cup of coffee or a glass of water, now's the time to do that before we begin with Annelous. Okay, I think we're ready. If you're ready, Annelous, take it away.
Perfect, thank you. And thank you for the introduction and of course for having me as a guest speaker today. So as Nicole said, I want to talk about a few things that I learned from kiteboarding. And to start off, I want to go back to when I started kiteboarding, which was when I was 16 years old, which is already more than 10 years ago. I can't believe how the time is flying by because it still feels like it was yesterday. But I remember that the first time that I flew that small trainer kite on the beach, I was completely addicted to the wind. And I was in my second to last year in high school. And I actually had no idea what I really wanted to do with my life. And my friends and my classmates, they all kind of had a plan either to become a doctor or a lawyer. But when they asked me the question, I had no idea what to say. And I kind of tried to avoid this conversation. But then when I started kiteboarding, I knew that I wanted to be on the water. So I decided to kind of stop thinking too much about the future. And I just tried to kind of organize my life that I could spend as much time on the water as possible. And yeah, I did everything I could to spend as much time on the water, and I would cycle an hour to the beach with all my gear loaded on the bike, with a headwind, sometimes through the rain, sometimes to find out that the wind dropped or there wasn't never really enough wind. But just the sessions on the water were so worth it. And then when I finished high school, I decided to actually take a little break from school, and I started working at the local kite shop as much as I could, so I could save some money and escape the cold Dutch winters here. And I got a lot of questions from people that were asking if it was really a good idea to take a break from school, and maybe if I wouldn't go to university, it was going to be difficult to come back. And I definitely understand the questions, but it just felt right to me. So I didn't think too much about it. And yeah, some people were kind of judging, and even family, they were worried, like, okay, what are you going to do? Just be on the water and work in a kite shop for a minimum wage. But it just felt right. So that's what I did. And now looking back, there were times that I didn't really know if it was a good plan, but I realized that often, especially when you're starting to do something new, that you don't know how it's going to work out. And especially when you're right in the middle of it, it's hard to see like your plan. And that's something I really learned, like even right now, starting something new, like I don't know where I'm going to be in a few years, and that's okay. Because even if you have a plan, sometimes it works out completely different. So not knowing is totally fine. And then the second thing that I learned from kiteboarding is that it's really important to surround yourself with like-minded people and passionate people. I remember leaving for my first big trip, which was to Brazil for 4 months on my 18th birthday, after working whole summer and fall and saving the money. And I didn't really have an idea where I was going, but I knew it was going to be windy every day, and that was enough for me. So I rented a room for, I think, around $300 a month, and then had a budget for like $10 a month if I was going to make it to the end of the trip with that money. And I remember definitely feeling a little bit scared stepping onto that flight because I didn't know anyone there. And then the moment I arrived there, I just found out how amazing the kiteboarding community is, even on the other side of the world. Because at my home spot, we had an amazing group of friends, but I didn't know it was going to be the same in Brazil. And then actually, even on my first day, I met 2 women there, and they were probably way older than me, but it didn't matter the age or where we were from. We just shared this passion. And this is still one of my favorite aspects in the sport. And I will definitely continue to look for people to surround me in the future. If you surround yourself with passionate people, you'll be fine, and you'll have a good time doing what you love. So that's another thing that I learned from kiteboarding. And then the next thing that I learned is that it's so important to keep progressing yourself and to always keep pushing yourself to keep moving forward. Because I often get asked what I love so much about kiteboarding, and I sometimes find it hard to put it into words, but you all probably know the feeling. Because do you remember the first time that you went riding, like the first time you did the water start and rode your first meters? Because that feeling that I got that day is basically the feeling that have been chasing all the time. And it's the thing that keeps me coming back to the sport. And I remember getting it from doing my first transition, doing my first jump, my first back roll, and I still get it these days, just by improving a trick a little bit or adding a grab. And now, every now and again, landing a new trick, which doesn't happen too much anymore. But it's funny that it doesn't matter if the trick is complicated or it's quite easy. It doesn't matter the level that you have, the feeling that you get, and the adrenaline rush from learning something new is just amazing. So I always try to motivate people to keep progressing, and trying something new doesn't have to be super complicated or really big trick with a lot of risk. It can actually be something simple that you just didn't think of before, like a switch trick or a first switch toe side right. It doesn't matter. And I've coached quite a few women from all levels. And I realized that sometimes we can be a little bit insecure about trying new things on the water. I mean, even myself, sometimes I think that I'm not good enough. So I just keep riding around and do the things that I can already do. But the moment that you step out of your comfort zone and give it a try, you usually find out that it wasn't closely as scary as you thought it was going to be. And usually you kind of already get that feeling like, oh, I actually understand this trick, and you already did like half the trick. So just going to take some more attempts, and you're not going to land it first try, but you'll find out that it might not be as hard as you think. And then another thing that really helps with improving yourself is trying to be creative. Before trying your first front roll, you might be able to add a grab to your back roll, which you can already do, or maybe do a back roll transition. So there's like all these small improvements, like you can take really small steps, which will also give you like that feeling of riding your first meters like back in the days. And for me, progressing, it keeps me stoked for days. And like progressing is really one of the most rewarding things for me in kiteboarding. So I'm just gonna take a sip of water. So right now, for me, it has been almost 11 years of kiteboarding, and definitely a lot has happened. From hitchhiking to a World Cup, to finding my first sponsors, joining Cabrina team, winning big competition, and losing a lot more. I realized that there's always ups and downs, and sometimes it was because of my own performance, but sometimes it's because of outside factors that you can't change. And it's really easy to focus on the goal and kind of get this tunnel vision of really wanting it. Like I had it, I really wanted to become the best in the world. But I definitely realized after these years that in the end, the most important thing is to be happy and create a life that makes that possible. Because for me, after becoming Dutch and European champion, I really wanted to win the Freestyle World Championships. And I spent 2 years on tour, had some really good times, several podium places, but then the organization changed, and I realized that I wasn't really enjoying my time at those competitions anymore. And this was actually one of the reasons that 5 years ago, I changed to the Kite Park League, which was the World Tour for park riding. And it was never really my plan. But I saw this tour and it looked fun and I needed something new. So I decided to go for it. And it was definitely not super easy to feel like a beginner again, but I decided not to care and just keep pushing as hard as I could to try to catch up with those best women that were competing in the tour at the time. And then, yeah, after some years and a lot of hard work, I managed to win the tour twice. And in 2019, managed to win the Triple S, the biggest event, or one of the biggest events in kiteboarding. But more importantly, I was just having a really good time competing on this new tour and traveling to new places that I've never been before. So you can sometimes set out a plan. Like before, when I started kiteboarding, I didn't have a plan of competing and I didn't know, but that happened. But then I had a plan and I changed it because I was simply not super happy the way it was going. And that's also how life works. You'll find your way just by all the experiences. And then, yeah, as you all know, last year, the beginning of the year, COVID hit, and I got stuck at home, like all of you guys. And it was definitely not easy for anyone, and not having income from competitions and trying to find different ways. I was coaching other people trying to earn a bit of money, but then I got a new opportunity because I couldn't travel. I was stuck at home, and the Dutch KiteFoiling team was actually training. We were lucky that the beaches never closed, and kitesurfing is something you can do on a safe distance. And in 2024, kiteboarding will be at the Olympics for the first time. But if you told me 2 years ago that I would be racing, I would have never have believed you. But it just happened, and I got the opportunity, and I thought it wouldn't be for me. But I just joined with an open mind and decided, okay, let's go for it. It's not like I can travel or be somewhere else. And I ended up really, really liking it. And it was such a good challenge to learn something new again, and to be bad at something is really motivating, even though sometimes it's also frustrating. And it was a good group of people. Instead of being alone at the spot trying to do freestyle, I was now surrounded by all these passionate people, and we were chasing each other on the water. And yeah, that's probably one of the most important things that I learned from kiteboarding is there's things you can't change. You can change the wind, the weather forecast, but you also can change some things like this that happen. But what you can do is decide to make the best out of it. So again, there is a very long way ahead, and it's gonna be a solid challenge to learn how to race and to catch up with all these women that have been doing this for way longer. But I knew that when I got this opportunity, I should at least give it a try, because you don't know until you try. And that's really something that I learned, that there are some opportunities that you only get once, and if you're doubting or if you say no, they pass by. Like going to university, that opportunity for me will always be there. Every day I can decide to quit what I do right now and go back to university. But joining this team, if I didn't join now, maybe next month they find another girl, or maybe another girl is going to improve way faster. So I had to jump on and give it all, and maybe I have a chance to catch up. So yeah, that's kind of how I learn to make decisions. Like, yes, I don't know if it's the right one, but I know that if I don't do it right now, I can't. Do I want to go for it? Yes, let's go. Let's grab this with both my hands. And yeah, let not some of those opportunities pass by and regret them in the past. So yeah, that's definitely something that I learned, is just keep an open mind, and there's things that you can't change, but you can make the best out of it and grab those opportunities, try new things, connect with other passionate people. That's why I'm really happy to be here and meet new people in the kiteboarding world. It all just adds up, and for a good time. And yeah, maybe one day we'll meet somewhere in the water. So yeah, that's actually a few things that I learned from kiteboarding. And I hope that from sharing a little part of my personal journey, that maybe you also trust that some things will work out for you, even though right now you might be in the middle of them and you don't see how they're going to work out. But if you're passionate and if you're dedicated, surround yourself by great people. And if you keep pushing yourself, improving yourself, and grabbing some opportunities that pass by, you really can do anything you want and anything you can set your mind to. So to finish off, I want to challenge all of you to try something new your next session. And if you're doubting of what you want to try in the water, send me a message or ask me later, and we will figure something out that's not too hard and that fits with your level. And I want to see the videos. I want to see, and even if it's a hand drag or a switch little jump, or can be anything, or even the most simple thing. But I want you guys to challenge yourself and send me a video, tag me in it. I want to see it.
Thank you, Annelous.
Yeah,
thank you.
it.
Such wise words from a young woman. And I love your story, and I love when you and I spoke last month about you coming and joining us. Thank you very much. It was just, I had to giggle a little bit when you said you started at 19 and you thought starting at 19 and kiteboarding might have been too late. And the reason I laughed a little internally is because I started as a 50-year-old woman and it was definitely too late. but I learned a lot about myself and about life through kiting, even at this age. And I think it's amazing at your young age that you've accomplished so much in so little time, and that now you're going to be hopefully our representative, right? I mean, the Dutch team representative, right? For kitefoiling and racing in the Olympics in 2024. I think that deserves applause, everybody. What do you say? Yeah, you're getting applause from everybody. I don't know if you can see it in your video, but that's a pretty cool thing. And we're really proud of you for that. And your words of wisdom are really nice, because it reminds us that no matter what age, no matter where we're at in kiting, obviously we as women have all found this to be a passion and something that empowers us as women. And it's great reminders that just trying something new, even if it's small, to just keep pushing yourself, right? And to keep looking for opportunities to improve. I love that. And when you said, I just have to show you, when you said, take the opportunity when you can, and you might go back to university later. It just reminded me that, my son, who was, 19, came to me and said, a year into college, and said, Mom, I want to go be a professional poker player and I want to quit university. And I said, you want to do what? And he said, Mom, I'm already winning. I'm doing really well. And I have this opportunity in front of me. And he took it. And, he never went back to college, to university. And 5 years later, he's still a ranked professional poker player, which I'm very proud of. And so sometimes, you take a different path that's not the traditional path that, we may think, or your parents may think is the path. And you've obviously grabbed the opportunity in front of you and ran with it. And it was a really good decision. So I want to commend you for taking that risk and going for the gusto.
Thank you. And what a great story from your son.
Yeah, it's sometimes you got to live life a little differently than what everybody expects you to do, right? And it's sometimes hard as a parent, I have to say. I don't know if your parents were this way, but as a parent, it was hard to say, yeah, okay, you can quit school and quit your opportunities for corporate jobs, because that's what it said in my mind. But he's made a really nice living and a lifestyle of travel and opportunities, just like you have. So I think it's awesome that you're doing what you're doing. And you're encouraging for a lot of young women and older women like me in the sport to keep doing it and keep challenging yourself. Yeah, and I have to say that when I before I ask for questions from the group, when I try something new, whether it's a board grab or a higher jump, this is kind of what I see. I don't know if any of you experience this, but man, when I do it alone and nobody's looking, I nail it. But as soon as my husband, who's a kiter as well, or any other better kiters around me watch, this is what I look like in the second picture. Yeah, I pretty much screw it up. So, I don't know if any of you have had that experience, but when all eyes are on you, sometimes it just doesn't work. But you've obviously mastered that. When people are watching, you still can nail it and do a great job in your kiting.
I mean, that's also part of doing things a million times.
Yes.
Like my coach always says that you need to put in, I think, 10,000 hours to be really good at something. So that's a lot. And when you're doing something for the first time, maybe it works out and then people are watching, so you feel this outside pressure. But if you do it a million times, you don't, it's just like second nature. And me, when I'm competing, I know people are watching, and I, kind of try to switch off that button and just focus. I've done this a million times. I can do it now, whether it's a training or it's a really important competition. It's on the water, it shouldn't be different. But that's also something took me a long time to learn.
Well, it's good reminders. What you're talking about reminds me of the story when Greg Louganis back years ago was the American diver for the Olympics, and he was the one who hit his head on the board, the diving board. I don't know if you remember, but it was years ago. And it was funny because he was so nervous. And after he did his final dive, a reporter came up to him and said, "Hey, Greg, Greg, what were you thinking? You know, you're up on that huge platform, about to do your final dive. You've already had an accident, hit your head. What are you thinking? And he goes, honestly, I was thinking about what my coach told me before the Olympics hit. And he said to me three things. Greg, you know, you've done this a million times. You know you can do it. So that was the first thing he said to himself. And then the second thing he said to himself before he dove that last time, if I mess up again, at least I'm going home with the silver. And that's not so bad. And number three, if I screw all that up, my mother will still love me.
That's so nice.
So his coach was really helping him reframe that self-talk, right? And that's what you're saying. The self-talk of, I've done it a million times, you know, I've done this at least 10,000 times. I know I can nail it. And then the muscle memory from just doing it over and over and over. You know, my kite coach in South Padre Island, Texas, always said, Holly, it's time on the water. I mean, you put in the time, you're going to get better. And
there's no secret.
There's no secret, right? It's just time on the water. And now I really understand that phrase. And I'm sure you know it better than anyone. Yeah. So I'm curious, what questions might you have for Annelous? And this is just a intimate, casual discussion. What questions or comments might you have for Annelous based on her wonderful career in the last, how many years? 10
yeah,
years?
10.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, what she's learned. She told us some great things in her story, but other things you might want to know or ask her about. And feel free just to raise your hand or speak up while you've got her here. She's ready to talk. She's obviously learned a lot in her career. Or what advice would you want for yourself as a kiter?
I think there's one question in the chat.
Ah, thank you for noticing. Yeah, let me pull that up. Can you read it? Who's it from?
Oh yeah, here I have it. It's from Frances, and it is, what's your advice on accomplishing air passes?
Ah, air passes.
Nice, good question. So yeah, usually when you're at this stage, you can already land blind or wrapped. And the trick for air passes is trying to pop as hard as you can. So for example, if we speak about the blind judge, taking the rally to the blind judge, you really want to go a little bit more powered and pop really hard. And then instead of waiting till you pass your highest point in your rally to do the backside 180, you want to really force yourself and pull with two hands before you're at the highest point. So then you have all this time in the air to grab the bar before you land, instead of just turning around when you're already going down, which makes it really hard to grab the bar when you're in the air. So really do the rally and force your way with two hands, pulling it to the hip, and then you'll be able to pass the bar. I would love to see some videos of you trying it.
Okay, yes, Frances, I want to see a video of you trying that. I know you can do it. I have faith in you.
Yeah, but I'm doing surface passes consistently. So
Yeah, I
that's
saw
the next
some.
step.
Oh, nice. Well done. Thanks for the question, Frances. And Annelous, I'm sure you know how to do this, but my goal is to learn a dark slide, which I don't see many people doing anymore where I kite. But is that something you do or you see people doing dark slides?
Yeah, it's super fun. Definitely.
It looks so amazing to me.
That's actually one of those tricks that people in their progression sometimes forget about. Like people, they can do jumps, they can do a dark slide, but they are thinking about doing all this like rotations and stuff. So it's a really fun one to learn. And actually the trick for the dark slide is, instead of like holding your edge to pop to go up, you kind of pull in the bar and don't edge, so you kind of like fall forward, but then the kite is still pulling you up, so you just slide just above the water.
And you have to have a lot of power, right, to keep pulling you.
Yeah, with more power it's definitely easier. And then at the end, the best thing is to end with a down loop. So you might want to try like a few jumps, and when you're going down, do a down loop, so you kind of get used to that feeling.
Oh, good tip. Good tip.
But the first ones you don't need to do a down loop, and you would just land them and kind of like lose a little bit of power, maybe sink in, and that's totally fine. And then like once you're building confidence, you can try it with a down loop.
Awesome. All right, thank you for that. Any other questions for Annelous, or just comments? Things you want to talk with her about while we have this amazing kiteboarding pro with us? Don't be shy.
Hi, Annelous. Nice to hear your story, really inspiring. I have some questions about the foiling. I also pretty new into foiling, and I also want to go on the international competition. So I saw you in Gisseria was it 2 weeks ago or something? Yeah. I wasn't there, but I watched online, and was it your first competition in this foiling, and how did you feel? And like, I know it was a lot of people in the fleet, and were you like afraid to get tangled into someone, or just
Yeah, that's super cool that you want to get into kite racing yourself. And Jitteria was my first international competition, and it was hectic. I mean, at home we're training with sometimes 10 kiteboarders on the water, and there were 100 competitors, and they split them up in 2 fleets. So we had 2 times 50 people at the starting line. And with racing, there's always like a point of the starting line which has a little bit of an advantage, so everyone is going to be there. And the starts were tricky, but I was surprised how fine it usually went. Like, I didn't end up in a really bad tangle, and I definitely didn't like put everything on the line. When there was like some risk, I decided, okay, I will lose like a couple of meters, lose a bit of ground to make sure I'm not crashing into someone. Like, the people really racing for the first place, they don't let anyone like take advantage or something. Like, they push for everything. But it was my first competition, and then I realized like one of the most important thing in racing is just being really consistent, because I definitely wasn't always the fastest on the water, but I just had consistent results. And there's 5 races a day, and we had 4 days, so that's a lot of races. So you need to make sure to stay out of trouble, race clean, get your ley lines. Basically, when you're starting racing, keep it simple. Just get around the course. Don't think too much, and that worked really for me. And I got an 8th place at the World Series, so I'm really, really happy. It's a good starting point, and I know what I have to work on for the next ones.
Okay. Nice.
Thank you for that question.
Are you riding with some other people at home?
Yeah, I'm in the Swedish team, so we
Awesome.
have but I won't go this I will go next year on the international.
Nice.
So
I mean,
we are also having but as you say, like when we are training at home, we are not even 10 people, we are like 3 or 4, and it's hard to yes, we can race, but I feel like maybe the next step is to get out to get around. I'm a little bit scared when it's a lot of people around, and maybe that's what I need to train on.
Yeah, and actually, like if you send a message to people from other countries, everyone is super keen to ride together, and we do the same. Like, we have a good level in Holland, but to get better you need to be with faster people, so we always meet up with the English team, and everyone is like super open, just like in any other discipline. So that definitely will help. But make hours at home and have fun, and hopefully I will see you next year at the tour.
Yeah, I hope so.
That would be awesome. Yeah, thanks for that, Carolina. Anybody else have a question or thought for Annelous before we move on to our next segment? So I have one last question for you, Annelous, and if anyone else does, please jump in. How do you conquer fear when you're trying to go to that next level, challenging yourself with that next big trick, or trying to get into that next competition, or going for the Olympics in 2024? You know, how do you kind of squelch that little voice in your head that's about fear, not making it, not doing it right? How do you deal with that?
For me, the thing that helps the most is not thinking about that that one big goal, but making like all these little steps towards it. So okay, I want to go to the Olympics, but that's really far. But at the first competition I want to ride clean, maybe get a top 10 result, but even less, like even, for example, today the wind was really strong and I'm not that good in strong wind yet on the foil. Like I was on a 9 meter and it was super scary. And sometimes I go in with really high expectations and I get frustrated, but now I learned and I kind of taught myself like, okay, take it easy, like take the time to get used to this kite. It is windy, it's gusty, it's not easy. In good conditions, all these things are quite easy and I'm getting better, but like difficult conditions, I still need to progress. So give yourself the time. And so today I had like some small goals, like, okay, I want to go confident on the downwind. I want to do some clean jibes, but not full speed. That's for the next time. So like all these small goals, kind of keep it not like, yeah, too much load on your shoulders.
I like that advice because I remember when I was learning to transition and as a newbie, and I hadn't even learned to jump yet. And for some reason, I got it mixed up in my head that I needed to learn a jumping transition at the same time. And my kiter friend said, no, just work on one thing at a time. And then you can combine them later. And a jumping transition is a lot of fun, but let's learn it in 2 steps, right? So one thing at a time.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you for that. Very nice. Well, listen, ladies,